Grandma, happy birthday. My grandson John, with a beaming smile, hands me an envelope with his tiny hands. His face is full of eager anticipation, hoping I will look inside quickly. I glance at him and then open the envelope. Inside, there is a drawing and a letter. Before checking the letter, I look at the drawing. It shows John and his mom holding hands and smiling warmly. At my age, birthday parties are a thing of the past, but a gift from dear John is truly delightful. Thank you, John, I say as I thank him, and he proudly smiles and leaves the living room. As John exits, my son David comes to my side. I show David the drawing John gave me, and he smiles happily as if it were his own gift. Mom, happy birthday! David, always kind-hearted, shyly gives me his birthday wishes. I feel a surge of pride for having such a wonderful son. I suddenly realize I still have the white letter in my hand, unopened. When I open it, I find it is a letter. What? What is this? What's wrong? David asks curiously, but I have no time to answer. When I finish reading the letter, my hands are trembling. I look at John's drawing again, my voice shaking. Finally, I lose my temper and tear the seemingly heartwarming drawing by my precious John in half. Mom! That was a drawing John made for you. How could you do that? Think about his feelings. David, shocked by my sudden action, shows his anger. I rip the drawing and glare at David, breathing heavily. For me? Don't be ridiculous. Can you say the same thing after seeing this? I thrust the letter in front of David's puzzled face. As I recall the past, thinking I might have to endure such injustice again is unbearable. I'll get my revenge, no matter what. I couldn't forgive her, no matter what. Thus, with my anger still boiling inside me, I vowed to get my revenge on her. My name is Elizabeth. I am currently 57 years old. I divorced my husband early on and have been raising my son David on my own while working multiple jobs. David, who grew up without a dad, has faced many hardships, but I am deeply proud of the man he has become. David has a good job, got married a few years ago, and soon had a son. My first grandchild. 3-year-old John is a bit mischievous but kind-hearted and adorable. At his suggestion, I moved in with him and his wife Susan after their marriage. Now, it's the 4 of us, including John, living together. I quit my previous jobs and started working part-time at a nearby supermarket after moving in. Susan quit her job when she got pregnant and started working part-time as an office worker after giving birth. Susan takes John to preschool, goes to work, and often prepares meals when she gets home early. She has a bit of a strong personality, but we get along well, and in the early days of living together, I thought I could look forward to a happy old age. I started to feel uneasy about Susan recently. Specifically, signs began to appear around 2 or 3 months after John started preschool. Susan still does the basic housework as she did when she first got married. However, these days, she seems to be out of the house more often than before. At first, I thought I might be overthinking it. Elizabeth, I'm going out for a bit, so please watch John. Again? Don't you think you've been going out a lot lately? I have my own social life and things to do. Besides, staying at home all the time isn't refreshing. When I nag her, Susan brushes it off and goes out regardless of whether it's night or a holiday. Her makeup is meticulously done. And she wears flashy clothes that reveal a lot. Her appearance is more glamorous than when she goes out with the family. It's not that I don't want her to dress up. She has always liked flashy clothes, and she probably meets up with similar friends. I tried to convince myself, but her behavior of neglecting John and going out even on weekends made me more suspicious. She often comes home late, sometimes past midnight. By the time she returns, John is already in bed and dreaming. So, it's only natural that my suspicion grows. Since Susan is often absent, I take care of John in her absence. While it's nice that John has grown very fond of me, which I should be happy about, John senses his mom's frequent absences and sometimes looks at me with a sad face, wanting to play with her. Hey, Mom isn't here again? That's right. Let's play with Grandma until Mom gets back. Dad will be home soon too. Okay. Seeing John's disappointed face makes me feel hurt too. I once considered talking to David about Susan seriously. He must also be suspicious of her recent actions. Lately, from what I have seen, there doesn't seem to be much conversation between the couple. However, David is busy with work every day and comes home exhausted, so it feels wrong to bring it up then. I knew we couldn't continue like this, especially for John's sake. As the days went by, my dissatisfaction with Susan only grew. One Sunday. It was my birthday. Grandma, happy birthday! John, smiling brightly, handed me an envelope with his tiny hands. Oh my, what could it be? John's face was filled with eager anticipation as he watched me open the lovely light blue envelope. I took the cute blue envelope and pulled out its contents. Inside was a piece of paper folded into quarters. As I unfolded it, another piece of paper fell to the floor. Oh. I picked up the white letter and, before reading it, looked at the folded paper. It was a drawing. John and Susan were standing side by side, holding hands and smiling warmly. At first glance, I felt a small sense of discomfort about the drawing but brushed it off. John still can't write. So he must have drawn the picture as a gift for me. I've seen John and Susan drawing with crayons and colored pencils together many times. At my age, grand birthday parties are a thing of the past, but a gift from dear John is truly delightful. Thank you, John, I said as I thanked him, and John proudly smiled. John, Mom says it's time to go. David, who was home for the holiday, called from the hallway. Okay, John replied cheerfully. It seemed he was going shopping with Susan. As John left the living room, David came to my side. I showed David the drawing John had given me. David smiled happily, as if it were his own gift. Mom, happy birthday! David, always kind-hearted, shyly gave me his birthday wishes. John's gentle nature must come from him. I felt a surge of pride for having such a wonderful son. I suddenly realized I still had the white letter in my hand, unopened. It didn't seem to be another drawing. As I was about to open it, I felt a strange unease. Although it was a gift from my beloved grandson, I had a bad feeling about it. I opened it, and it was a letter. The handwriting was Susan's. Why from Susan? I wondered as I read the letter. What? I couldn't help but exclaim at the name written on the first line. What's wrong? David asked curiously, but I couldn't answer. When I finished reading the letter, my hands were trembling. What is this? I looked at John's drawing again, my voice shaking. John and Susan were happily smiling in the picture. John was holding a toy in his hand, a toy that shouldn't be in our house. And the background of the picture. It showed a window with blue curtains. There are no blue curtains anywhere in our house. I was certain. The scene in this picture was not here, but in someone else's house. And that person was the one named in Susan's letter. The face of Michael Moore, a man who works at John's preschool, flashed in my mind. Of course, Michael knows about John. It seemed John had put Susan's letter in the envelope along with the drawing before giving it to me. No, Susan probably intended to give the drawing to Michael. Reading the letter left no other conclusion. She must not know the drawing ended up with me, nor that John accidentally included the letter. I didn't want to see or remember the contents of the letter again, but I looked at the loathsome letter once more. Dear Michael, this drawing is from John for you. John says he can't wait to live with you. He loves you so much. I want to leave my husband soon and live with you and John. The letter continued, but I felt nauseous and couldn't read further. Finally, I lost my temper and tore the seemingly heartwarming drawing by my precious John in half. Mom! That was a drawing John made for you. How could you do that? Think about his feelings. David, shocked by my sudden action, showed his anger. I tore the drawing and glared at David, breathing heavily. For me? Don't be ridiculous. Can you say the same thing after seeing this? I thrust the letter in front of David's puzzled face. David took the letter and began to read it, his head lowered. Gradually, his lips started to tremble. His face turned pale, then quickly flushed with anger. David was trembling more violently than when he was angry at me. I had never seen him explode with such emotion before. This is cheating! Just like Dad! Right now, David must be thinking of both Susan and his dad, my ex-husband. I had divorced my husband because of his infidelity. David was 11 years old at the time, so he must have already understood the words cheating and divorce. The thought of David enduring the same unfairness as back then was unbearable. I will definitely get revenge on her. I couldn't forgive her for hurting David and betraying John. So, with our anger still boiling inside us, we vowed to get revenge on Susan. When Susan returned from shopping, she quickly left again, leaving John behind. The torn drawing lay at the bottom of the trash, but I asked John to draw a similar one again. Following the plan David and I discussed, I added a note to Susan's letter. Imitating Susan's handwriting was challenging, but I managed to alter the letter successfully. The addition was an invitation to Michael for John's birthday party in a week. I wrote that she wanted him to come and that she would explain their future plans to her husband and mother-in-law. It was hard to write without making a face out of disgust. Unaware, Susan gave the altered letter and the new drawing from John to Michael the next day. Returning home in high spirits after giving her gift to her lover, Susan readily agreed when David suggested throwing a big birthday party for John. Of course, Susan, who loves a good party, agreed without suspicion. Then, we should invite many of John's friends. Susan enthusiastically invited many friends she met at preschool. She seemed so happy she might start humming a tune, and I watched her with a secret smile. Aren't you inviting the preschool teachers? No. It would be a bit much to ask them to come on their day off. David probed further, and Susan, trying to hide her guilty conscience, responded vaguely. I shrugged my shoulders discreetly, thinking, of course, she wouldn't want to invite them. As the birthday party approached, Susan continued to leave John in my care and went out dressed up. Both David and I were growing more impatient, but we knew everything would be settled soon. We spent the next few days with this thought, and on the Saturday before the party, I asked John to draw another new picture. Do you know Mom's friends she often goes out with? Friends? Yeah, I know. Right. Let's draw a picture of them and give it to Mom as a surprise. Okay. Let's surprise Mom. John smiled happily and picked up his crayons. David, who was watching TV nearby, turned and looked at us, sensing something. I gave David a small nod. A few days earlier, while Susan was in the shower, I had secretly looked at her mobile phone and obtained solid evidence of her infidelity. The phone was locked, but I quickly unlocked it using the 4-digit code. She should have changed the number to something else, not her birthday, since she was cheating. Thanks to that, it made things easier for us. Now, everything was ready. On the Sunday of John's birthday party, it was hectic from the morning. For this day only, Susan was home, dressed up in flashy makeup and clothes as if she were the star, and welcomed the arriving guests. Once everyone was gathered, John's friends sang happy birthday. John sat in front of a birthday cake larger than his face, blowing out the candles, one for each year. A round of applause erupted. Susan, oblivious to the shocking turn of events to come, was visibly in a good mood. Just as the applause died down, the doorbell rang. Who could that be now? Her puzzled voice rose as if she had been interrupted at the peak of the party. All the friends she invited were already gathered in the living room, so she couldn't think of anyone who would be arriving late. That must be what she is thinking. Let me get it. I left Susan with that and headed to the front door. I opened the door and greeted the visitor with a smile. Children's laughter filled the background. After a brief greeting, I led the man, who came to disrupt the cheerful atmosphere, back to the living room. Susan, you have a guest. Everyone, including Susan, turned to look. In the suddenly silent room, a voice broke the silence. It wasn't Susan but one of her friends. Susan herself stood frozen, her mouth half open in shock. Mr. Moore? Why are you here? Snapping out of her shock, Susan pushed past me and hurried to the man at the door. What are you doing here? What do you mean? Susan, you invited me. I didn't invite you. What is this about? Amidst the growing murmurs, the two started arguing. I glanced at David, who was next to John, and nodded slightly. Then I called out to John. John, you have a present for Mr. Moore, right? Give it to him and Mom. Okay. John stood up, smiling broadly. He walked over to Susan and Michael and handed the paper he was holding to Michael. Michael looked confused at the innocent smile on John's face, and before he could take it, Susan snatched the paper from him. The moment they saw the drawing, they both froze. What's wrong? What is this drawing? Friends gathered around them. As they understood what the drawing depicted, they started questioning Susan. What's going on? The drawing I had asked John to make showed Susan and Michael looking very close. They were holding hands and smiling happily at Michael's house. I don't know. I've barely talked to Mr. Moore. Right, Mr. Moore? Yes, I only see Mrs. Johnson when she drops John off and picks him up. Michael, pressured by Susan's fierce demeanor, tried to explain, looking bewildered. No, Mom and Mr. Moore are good friends. John joined the conversation, tilting his head in confusion. I've played with Mom at Mr. Moore's house. John! Stop it! Susan covered John's mouth with her hands, trying to stop him from saying more. Michael's face turned pale. Is that true, Mr. Moore? Susan's friends stared at Michael with disdain. No, it's not true. What do you mean, not true? Enough of this! David, who had remained silent until now, finally couldn't hold back and shouted. He approached Susan and Michael, his frustration evident, and thrust his phone screen at them. Friends looked over his shoulder to see a photo of Susan kissing Michael. I had sent the photo to David after sneaking a look at Susan's phone. There were several photos, all traces of sending them deleted. There was also a picture of the letter Susan had written to Michael. David had taken a photo of it before I altered it, knowing it would serve as evidence. The letter contained the horrifying message that she wanted to leave her husband and live with Michael and John. What now? Can you still deny it? Susan, it seems you want to leave David and live with Mr. Moore. You've been meeting him often, haven't you? Neglecting John and cheating. I revealed to everyone how Susan had been neglecting John. Seeing the photos and hearing my words, Susan's friends were beyond shocked. They were furious. Susan trembled with regret, unable to meet their contemptuous gazes. "You're disgusting. I'm leaving." One by one, friends left, dragging their children, their expressions cold. Susan, having lost everyone's trust, collapsed to her knees on the living room floor. After everyone left except for the family and Michael, David thrust a piece of paper in front of the bowed Susan. "I've already signed it. Now you sign it." The moment Susan realized it was a divorce paper, her face turned white. Barely able to stand, she staggered up. "Wait, please wait. I can't live with you anymore. Go to that man if you want." I took John and moved away from them. Holding John close, I covered his ears. Conversations like this were not for a young child to hear, even if he couldn't understand them. Susan knew how I divorced my husband, so why did she do this? I now realize how much this must have triggered David's trauma. But it was too late. Susan wouldn't understand. Resigned, Susan, her hands trembling, signed the divorce papers, leaving a bitter expression on her face. "There, I've signed it. Happy now?" Susan hysterically threw the paper at David. "Yeah, and you'll also pay for the damages caused by your affair." "I don't have a job. Where am I supposed to get that money?" "You don't have a job? What about your office work?" "Well, that's..." "You'll figure it out." David responded coldly. "If you refuse to pay, we'll take it to court." With that threat, Susan finally fell silent. She must have realized she had no chance of winning in court. After discussing with Michael, David also made him agree to pay for the damages. Susan left the house with Michael without saying a word to John. The next day, David submitted the divorce papers. The divorce with Susan was finalized. A few days later, I heard that Michael quit his job at the preschool. Complaints from parents had flooded in, and he lost his job due to the tarnished reputation. I don't know what happened to Susan after she went to Michael. Rumor has it that their relationship didn't work out, and I thought she might come back to take John, but she never showed up. But even if she did, neither David nor I would let John go. We couldn't entrust precious John to a woman who cheated. I decided to continue living with David and John. "John loves you more than Susan. So, let's keep living together here." John cried for days after Susan left, but he gradually started to recover. Even as a child, he seemed to understand that his mom wouldn't come in the same situation as David's past. "I'm not lonely. I have Grandma and Dad who love me," John said without shedding tears. I could feel that John truly cared for me, just as David had said. Overwhelmed with emotion, I hugged John tightly. A few weeks later, John had calmed down and started to smile again. "Okay, Grandma, I'm off. Now, I'm the one who takes him to and from preschool." As John waved energetically, I waved back. With Susan gone, I decided to give him even more love and support alongside David, watching him grow. "Get lost with the kid, you adulteress." Despite it being late at night, my husband, Kelly, raised his voice and hurled insults at me. Out of sheer fear, I couldn't help but close my eyes. The reason behind these accusations is simple. Our daughter's blood type is one that couldn't possibly come from the two of us. Upon discovering this, Kelly concluded that I had cheated on him and started blaming me. "I swear I haven't cheated on you. You can even do a DNA test if you want. Though it will likely be a waste of time, I'll do it to prove you're a cheater." We had been so close when we first got married, and never thought things would come to this. "You'll regret saying that." "What are you talking about?" There's no way I'll regret it. Kelly seemed confident in his words, but I couldn't understand why. He should be the one to know best that I haven't had the opportunity to cheat, given how much time we spend together. But his lack of trust pushed me to agree to the DNA test. A few weeks later, the DNA test results arrived. All right, I'll prove you're a cheater now. Kelly took out the document from the envelope with a smug smile. However, his face turned pale as he examined the contents. So, what do the results say? What is this? My name is Alicia. I'm 29 years old. I work at an insurance company in the General Affairs Department. I met my husband Kelly at this company. He's an ace salesperson in the sales department. When we first met, I was still new and didn't know much. Kelly would often invite me out for drinks. Having just moved to the area, I didn't have many friends, so I appreciated his kindness. Plus, every time we went out after work, Kelly would listen to my work-related concerns. I'm feeling a lot of stress because my boss has been putting pressure on me. The best way to relieve stress is to talk to someone about it. I'm always here to go out for drinks with you. I really rely on you because you're so helpful. I later heard that he fell in love at first sight when he first came to the General Affairs Department and was trying to win me over. I wasn't aware of that, so I gradually fell for Kelly, and before I knew it, we were married. Kelly, being an ace salesperson, had a good income, so I could have become a housewife, but I chose not to. This decision was influenced by the rift between me and his family. After we got married, I found out that in his family, all women become housewives after marriage. Since our wedding, they've been pressuring me to quit my job and move in with them. I didn't want to do that, so I continued working. I talked to him about this, but he didn't want to go against his parents and didn't support me. You could at least be on my side a little. Of course, I'm on your side, but I understand Mom's point too. Why do you always side with your mother? But recently, despite our differences, I found out I was pregnant. I left work early because I wasn't feeling well and discovered I was pregnant at the hospital. However, not wanting to rely on Kelly's family, I decided to return to my parents' home to have the baby. When I returned to my parents' home, they were very kind, knowing the strained relationship I had with my in-laws. There will be tough times, but I'm sure you'll have a healthy baby. Hearing you say that, Mom, makes me feel so much better. If anything happens, you can always rely on me. Thank you so much. I will. With my mother's kindness protecting me, I was able to give birth to a healthy child. Kelly was very happy about the birth and supported me throughout the pregnancy. Since I went to my parents' house right after discovering I was pregnant, I didn't have to face any pressure from my in-laws and was able to give birth with peace of mind. However, even years after giving birth, my mother-in-law Natasha continues to pressure me whenever we meet. Although my in-laws adore our child, they want us to return to their home as soon as possible because of their affection for the child. One day, after a usual day at work, I came home to find her there. Since she has a spare key, she sometimes comes over without notifying me. The moment I realized she was in the house, I felt genuinely uncomfortable. As soon as I entered the living room, she immediately started pressuring me. When will you be satisfied with working? You're not getting any younger, so quit your job and come back home. I have no intention of quitting my job or returning to the in-laws' house. What kind of attitude is that, after we were kind enough to let you marry my son? The child is about to start kindergarten, so you must come back before then. Please don't say let you marry. Of course, I'm considering the child, but this is a matter between me and my husband. Our child will attend a kindergarten near our current home. Oh dear, why did he marry someone like you? Besides, the The General Affairs Department doesn't pay that well, so I don't see why you insist on continuing. No matter how hard I try, she will never acknowledge me. Recently, I heard from my husband that Natasha had hoped he would marry someone from the sales department. Apparently, she believes that people in sales are better at understanding others' feelings and would become the ideal wife for her son. In other words, she dislikes me. Even though it doesn't directly concern me, being constantly told such things takes a toll on my mental health. I didn't expect it to be this bad, and now I don't know what to do. Moreover, Kelly, being a mama's boy, always downplays her pressure. Even though it's an issue within our marriage that needs to be resolved together, he doesn't support me at all. You should tell her that it's fine for me to continue working. I'll raise our child properly. Why don't you just ignore her? It's not like she's putting that much pressure on you. You may not realize it, but she's pressuring me a lot. If this keeps up, it could escalate, and who knows what she'll do. I don't think Mom would go that far, but I'll talk to her next time I see her. You always say that, but you never actually do anything. You could try harder to protect me and the child. Honestly, I think it would be easier if we moved back home. Mom would help with the child, and we wouldn't have to pay rent. Returning home seems like the best option to me. I understand the benefits, but I don't want to be pressured. I want our child to grow up freely, and I can't imagine moving back right now. Don't you want to live happily as a family of 3? Mom has put a lot of thought into this. You should realize that going back home would be easier for you too. Stop being stubborn and move back now. I don't want to take the easy way out. No matter how much I express my opinion, Kelly only sides with Natasha. It's fine to have a good relationship with the in-laws, but I can't accept his obsession with them. Why doesn't he understand the mental anguish I'm going through because of her pressure? While I was contemplating this, our child fell and got injured. I immediately took my child to the hospital, where they decided to conduct a thorough examination just to be safe. The results showed no abnormalities in her body, but an unexpected and shocking fact was revealed. Our daughter's blood type was one that neither Kelly nor I could have given her. I am type O, and Kelly is type B, yet our child's blood type was A. I couldn't understand what was happening, so I decided to bring the test results home and discuss them with Kelly. When I arrived, he was already home, so I explained the situation to him. Hey, our child got injured, so I took her to the hospital for some tests. What's with that serious look on your face? Did they find something serious? No, nothing like that. But our child's blood type is A. I'm type O, and you're type B, so she couldn't possibly have a type blood. He thought for a moment, then widened his eyes and pointed at me. You cheated on me with another man, didn't you? That's the only explanation. I would never do that. How can you say something so horrible? I was honestly shocked because I never expected to be told something like this. Even though it's him, I thought he trusted me. Get lost with the kid, you adulteress! Even though it was the middle of the night, Kelly yelled abusive words at me. I was so terrified that I closed my eyes. The reason for this abusive tirade was simple. Our daughter's blood type was one that couldn't possibly come from us as a couple. Knowing this, he accused me of having an affair. I really haven't cheated on you. You can even have a DNA test done if you don't believe me. It might be a waste of time, but I'll do it to prove you're an adulteress. We were so close when we first got married, and never thought things would turn out like this. Don't say I didn't warn you if you regret this later. Regret? Why would I regret this? I'm telling Mom about this too. With that, Kelly called Natasha right in front of me and started explaining everything in detail. A few minutes later, Natasha, understanding the situation, asked to speak with me, so Kelly handed me the phone. So you really are that kind of person. I knew it from the start. That's why you preferred to live in your own house instead of coming to ours. You didn't want to come back to our house because you wouldn't be able to cheat easily. That's not why I refused, and I haven't cheated. Don't lie to Mom too! Both of them were convinced of my infidelity, attacking me together. But since I truly hadn't cheated, I decided to prove it through a DNA test. You really want to do a DNA test? It will only reveal your wrongdoing, so I suggest you don't. I already said it's fine because I haven't cheated. Or do you have something to hide? There's nothing I, as the man, can do. If you're so confident, let's do the DNA test. I don't understand why you seem so happy about this. Normally, if you think I've cheated, wouldn't you be sad? I'm not happy at all. But I'm amazed at how calm you are when your wrongdoing is about to be exposed. Of course I'm calm because I haven't done anything. If there were even a slight possibility, I'd be panicking. If the DNA test proves the child isn't mine, we're getting a divorce. I can't stay married to someone who has a child with another man. Fine by me. All right, it's a promise. Don't say later that you were joking. Let's get the DNA test done and see the truth. We quickly collected our DNA samples and sent them to a facility for testing. A few weeks later, the results came back. Although I knew there was no possibility of infidelity, I was still nervous about what the results would say. Oddly, he seemed even more nervous than me. He took the envelope, his hands sweaty as he opened it. As he pulled out the documents and read them, his expression turned to one of great surprise. Seeing that look, I couldn't help but wonder what was written inside. Why do you look so surprised? Does it say that I had an affair? No, that's not it. Then, just let me see it. I snatched the report from Kelly, and the content was shocking. It stated that Kelly's blood type, which he always said was B, was actually A. Normally, having a different blood type wouldn't be that big of a deal. But the problem was that both of Kelly's parents had blood type B. This meant that if Kelly were their biological child, he couldn't have blood type A. That's why Kelly's face turned pale. He had been accusing me of having an affair and bearing a child from it, but now it seemed his own parents might not be his biological parents. The shock was too much for him, and he stopped saying anything to me. He took the report from me again and checked if his blood type was indeed A. However, it was clearly stated, leaving no room for doubt. Moreover, because Kelly didn't want any errors in the testing, he had chosen a very expensive and reliable facility. So, I was confident the results were accurate. What is going on here? Why am I type A when Dad and Mom are supposed to be type B? I never thought we'd discover this. But now it's clear I didn't have an affair because it wasn't a secret lover who was type A, it was you. You're right. The report even says the likelihood of you being the biological parent is high. But why did Dad and Mom lie? You accused me of cheating so much, yet you have nothing to say about that? Normally, accusing your spouse of an affair is unthinkable. I'm sorry about that. But it's strange to do things that make you look suspicious. Maybe you're upset, but the report proved I did nothing wrong. If we had known from the start that your blood type was A, none of this would have happened. Also, how have you never had a blood test in your 30s? I've never been hospitalized and have always been healthy. Since both my parents said they were type B, I didn't see the need to check. It's rare, but 2B types can have an O-type child. But they can't have an A-type child, so there must be some hidden truth in your family. Yeah, I guess you're right. I can't stand this. I'm going to find out the truth. Kelly couldn't sit still and hurriedly started getting ready. We took the report and headed to his parents' house. I wasn't sure why I had to go along, but I decided to join him. When we arrived, both of his parents were there, waiting for us. Natasha was smirking, thinking I had come to apologize for cheating. She probably assumed I was here to apologize for my confirmed affair. So, you really were cheating, and now you're getting a divorce from Kelly? Is that a divorce paper Kelly's holding? I didn't cheat, so we aren't getting divorced because of that. If we divorce, it might be because of something on your side. Why would it be my fault? There's no problem now that the affair is off the table. I've only heard a bit, but what happened? And what's this talk of divorce when your child was just born? It seems the child's blood type was unusual. What do you mean by unusual blood type? Robert, my father-in-law, seemed quite unsettled since he hadn't been informed about the situation. Given that we suddenly arrived talking about divorce and blood types, it was understandable. It seems Alicia might have had an affair. The child's blood type can't come from the two of them. I can't believe Alicia would have an affair. Is this true? Since the birth of the child, Robert has been very kind to me. It seems he was thrilled to become a grandfather. I had heard stories about people starting to exercise just to play with their grandchildren, but I never thought I'd see it myself. His kindness to both me and the child was appreciated. Currently, the child was in Kelly's room, so Robert seemed intent on protecting me. I would never have an affair. I'm not like some people. And who exactly are you referring to? Never mind that. Just show them the DNA test results. You're right. Kelly, perhaps still shaken, obediently followed my request. He took out the DNA test results and showed them to his parents. The test proves we're a legitimate family. But why is my blood type A, not B? If both Dad and Mom are B, I should be B or O. Kelly's words left his parents speechless. They seemed unable to process the information. After a while, as they started to grasp the situation, they became even more agitated. Wait, why is Kelly's blood type A? I'm definitely B, so Mom must be lying. I'm not lying. How could you say that after decades of marriage? I can show you my blood type records. Then why is Kelly A? If we're both B, he can't be A. Were you cheating on me, Mom? What? Well, of course not. She looked visibly disturbed. Though it wasn't definitive, something was clearly off. Even if she hadn't cheated, there seemed to be something she was hiding. I hadn't expected things to escalate this far, and I had no idea what would happen next. Anyway, if both of you are B, then Kelly can't be your biological child. Either one of you is lying about your blood type, or Natasha was unfaithful. I already told you, I didn't cheat. Then you won't mind doing a DNA test like we did. That way, we can find out the truth about who Kelly's real parents are. Upon hearing Kelly's suggestion, she fell silent. If there was nothing to hide, a DNA test shouldn't be a problem. It was clear she had a secret. Robert seemed to think the same. Judging by their reactions, there was indeed something they were concealing. If you can't do the DNA test, then tell us everything honestly. All right, I'll tell you everything. I don't know all the details myself, but it might be my ex-boyfriend's child. What do you mean by your ex-boyfriend's child? And what do you mean you don't know the details? You must have been seeing your ex while you were dating Robert. And you remember that his blood type was A. When I made this assertion, she fell silent again. Judging by her reaction, it seemed to be the truth. It seems like Alicia is right. This is the first time I've heard such a thing. I can't believe Dad isn't my real dad. Mom, why did you keep such an important thing a secret? No, I really thought you were Robert's child. I only saw my ex-boyfriend for a short period. Even if it was a short period, it means you had an affair. And you had the nerve to accuse me of having an affair? But it was 30 years ago. It doesn't matter how many years ago it was. It doesn't change the fact that you cheated. I don't understand why you kept accusing me. Well, we don't need to blame her too much for an affair that happened so long ago. What hurts me is that she kept it a secret. Despite Natasha being the cause of the affair, Kelly seemed to be defending her. But infidelity is wrong, no matter when it happened. How can he think it's not a big deal? There's something I've been hesitant to say, but you're having an affair too, aren't you? What are you talking about? How can you say such a baseless thing? It's not baseless. Do you think I'm saying this without any proof? What do you mean by that? Kelly was visibly shaken, easily noticeable by anyone. He must know he's done something wrong. I had seen a woman's message on her smartphone a while back. I didn't know if it was an affair, but in this situation, it was a good time to shake him up since he was already off balance. Kelly was clearly rattled, not expecting this affair scandal to turn towards him. Are you telling me both Natasha and Kelly had affairs? Don't tarnish our family name like this. Mom might have done it, but I was recognized as a parent by the DNA test. Don't compare me to Mom, who had an affair and a child. My affair was 30 years ago, so it's past the statute of limitations. And since Kelly is already 30, it shouldn't matter if the parent is different. That's a different issue. Don't lump me together with you. Unlike you, I haven't cheated. You seem pretty confident, but I have proof. Saying this, I showed the photo of the notification screen from Kelly's smartphone that had messages from a woman. The content clearly showed a close relationship with the woman. Even Kelly wouldn't be able to deny this evidence. How? I had a password set on my phone. When you came back from a business trip, you left it unlocked while you were sleeping, so I saw it. I didn't crack your password or anything. Cheating right after having a baby, you're truly a terrible man. Mom, you're the last person who should say that. You had a child with someone other than Dad and kept it a secret. I never expected the situation to escalate to this extent, but the suspicion against me had cleared, and it seemed like this family was heading towards collapse. Their affairs had come to light, and Robert, beyond anger, was completely dismayed. Robert, concerned for me and my child, allowed us to return home. He must have thought it was best for us to leave the scene of the family discord. The next day, Kelly returned home, looking utterly exhausted. You're late getting back. A lot happened after that. Don't act like it's none of your business. Why did you have to show that picture in front of everyone? How dare you turn this around on me? I don't care about you anymore. You called me an adulteress when you were the one having an affair. Well, that was... Kelly seemed to be reflecting on everything. He was probably thinking about his affair partner. If he hadn't left his smartphone unlocked in his exhaustion, I wouldn't have suspected anything, and he might be regretting that now. You tried to accuse me of infidelity to avoid paying alimony in a divorce. But I can see through all your plans. How could you cheat on me when we just had a baby? You don't need to say anything more. I'm reflecting on it. From now on, let's try to make it work as a family of 3. It's too late to try now. I'm divorcing you. With that, I slammed the divorce papers in front of him. He was clearly shocked, not having expected I would go this far. Though he had no intention of divorcing, being presented with the papers caught him off guard. But I had decided to divorce him the moment his affair was confirmed. Are you really going to divorce me? Do you think you can raise the child alone? It's impossible for you to do it on your own, so you might as well give up. I'll make sure to get alimony and child support from you in the divorce settlement. Even if we divorce, you'll still support this household. What? I'm not paying any of that. I've already consulted a lawyer, so it's pointless to resist. If you have complaints, take them up with your past self. His face turned pale. He never thought he'd have to pay such money. Being a spendthrift with no savings, he was probably wondering what to do. While we were having this conversation, Natasha suddenly appeared at our house. Apparently, she had followed Kelly, who was on his way back. The discussion isn't over yet, so don't just leave. You're not getting our house. After everything you've put us through, don't expect any kindness from me. I'm sorry, but can I just stay at home? Why should I let you stay at the house? You clearly said you'd never come back, and now you want to? Excuse me, I hate to interrupt. What now? You've already ruined our family, and you still have more to say? You're worthless without the child. Honestly, I'd prefer you not to be with Kelly. Well, I've already decided to divorce Kelly, so we won't be together anymore. And Kelly will be busy paying alimony and child support, so please take care of him. What? Are you two really getting a divorce? She seemed quite surprised to hear that we were getting divorced. Despite her constant taunts, it was clear she hadn't considered the possibility of our divorce. Given all the nasty things she'd said, I assumed she had considered the potential for a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict to lead to divorce. But she must have thought that since she didn't divorce after her own affair and raising a child with someone else, divorce wasn't an option for us either. However, I couldn't see myself continuing with a husband like Kelly, who cheated on me, or a MIL who constantly pressured me. Given that Kelly cheated on me, I can't stay with him. And I certainly don't want to live with a MIL who constantly pressures me, I said. Robert, who had been following Natasha, came to our house as well. I heard everything at the door. You're getting a divorce, huh? It's unfortunate, but considering Alicia and the child, it's probably for the best. How could you say that? Natasha exclaimed. By the way, we're also getting a divorce, Robert said. What? I haven't heard anything about that. Natasha responded. It's obvious to anyone that we should divorce. So, please leave the house you're living in. Then where am I supposed to go? Kelly asked. You're old enough to figure that out for yourself. Don't think you can shirk your responsibilities to Alicia and the child and have an easy life at home. And where am I supposed to go? Natasha asked. Both Kelly and Natasha, who had been so assertive until now, turned pale at his words. Having lost the refuge of their family home, they were now in despair. I felt a bit satisfied, given how much they had belittled me. Kelly and Natasha, unable to return to their family home, rented an old apartment together. The houses we had lived in were quite nice, so the downgrade must have been severe. Natasha, having had a helper at home, wasn't very skilled at housework. Kelly, who had always left everything to me, was probably clueless about household chores. So, even though there were two adults living together, it was easy to imagine their lives had become quite miserable. Although I could learn more about their living conditions through the lawyer, I chose not to inquire further, expecting the reality to be too dismal. My primary concern was to keep my child away from an unfaithful father, and securing the divorce was enough for me. I had no intention of being lenient with Kelly, so I ensured he paid the full amount of alimony and child support. You will pay the full amount of alimony and child support. If I find out you haven't, be prepared for the consequences, I said. You think just divorcing me is bad enough? Do you have no heart? Kelly retorted. Which mouth are you saying that with? Anyway, make sure you pay the alimony and child support, I insisted. Got it. He muttered. I don't understand how you can have such an attitude after doing something so wrong. You're right. I'm really sorry, Kelly said. Kelly's salary wasn't high, and he wasn't the type to save money, so after paying the alimony and child support, he probably had very little left. Thanks to the alimony and child support, my child and I could continue living in the same house, maintaining our standard of living. My burden hadn't changed since Kelly had never been involved in household chores. Moreover, divorcing him relieved me of stress, allowing me to raise my child with a happier mindset than ever before. What kind of adult will he become? Today, my grandchild Matthew injured an underclassman at school. But he doesn't seem to be remorseful at all. He acts purely on his emotions and has no idea how to control his anger. At this rate, he might end up doing something truly irreversible. That night, in the quiet bedroom where only the sound of the air purifier could be heard, I was looking down at him. I could hear his faint breathing. I watched him sleeping with a peaceful and innocent expression, looking so adorable. Suddenly, I became aware of the cold knife in my right hand, and my heart froze. Staring at the sharp blade, thoughts of wanting to free him from his suffering raced through my mind. Clenching my teeth, I gripped my wrist, holding the knife tightly with my other hand. Love, hate, sadness, so many emotions mixed together, and I didn't know what to do anymore. Trying desperately to calm my trembling body and erratic breathing, I closed my eyes. I'm sorry, I can't take it anymore. I raised the knife above Matthew with both hands. This is the only way. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. My name is Mary. Now, I live with just my husband Jason. Jason is about to retire soon, so he always finishes work on time. We eat dinner together leisurely at home and go for walks together on weekends, enjoying peaceful days. We are both healthy, our house is paid off, and our children are independent. During this time, I never doubted that my old age would be positive and fulfilling. My daughter Rebecca works in fashion and travels for work frequently, both domestically and mainly to Europe, working very hard. She decided when she was young that she wouldn't get married. It's not a matter of being strong-willed. I truly respect her, who lives with pride in her work. On the other hand, my son Kevin has been living in the neighboring town since he got married at the age of 28. Kevin and his wife Nicole didn't have children for about 10 years after they got married. It seemed that Nicole was more troubled by this than Kevin was. I don't think children are something to rush, it'll happen eventually. Sometimes, when they visited us, Kevin would bring up the topic of not having children. He spoke as if it were someone else's problem. There was no need to mention it himself. But if they hadn't had children for 10 years, maybe they were being asked about it by others. Jason and I pretended not to be particularly interested. As long as they were happy together, that was enough. Nicole is always telling me not to drink or stay up late. She's like my mom, it's annoying. Nicole would smile shyly and look down next to Kevin. Not drinking and not staying up late, I felt like Nicole's wishes were embedded in those words, even if Kevin didn't notice. 10 years must have felt long. The day Kevin and Nicole told us they were expecting a baby. When was that, I wonder? Kevin and Nicole used to visit us once a month, but suddenly they stopped coming over, and I felt a bit uneasy. When they finally visited again after a few months, Kevin seemed embarrassed, so I thought something was up. Well, Nicole is pregnant. Finally. Nicole's belly wasn't very big yet, so she didn't look like she was in the stable period of pregnancy. But seeing Nicole's gentle and kind smile as she lovingly patted her belly, I couldn't help but cry. What's wrong, Mary? No, it's just strange. It's not like I'm sad. I'm happy. I really am happy. Once again, I repeated in my heart that I was happy. I couldn't put it into words, but I was truly glad that Nicole was having a baby. The look on her face as she rubbed her belly was the happiest I'd ever seen her, and I had a feeling I'd never forget that expression for the rest of my life. The 2 babies born were named Matthew. I felt deep in my heart that the name Matthew suited my beloved grandchild's smiling face. Nicole's parents lived far away, so she decided to stay with us for a while instead of going back to her own home. It had been a long time since I held a baby, and the sensation was so soft that it scared me to hold him. I let out a small cry as I held the fragile life in my arms and gazed at Matthew's expression. "You raised me and my sister just fine, so why are you so scared to hold him?" "Well, it's different when it's someone else's child. The thought of even accidentally hurting him scares me," I said with a nervous laugh, using every bit of my strength to support him with my arms. The tension was entirely different from when I raised Kevin and Rebecca. Sleeping in my arms, Matthew was fragile, delicate, and yet so beautiful. He grew steadily. When he turned 4, he developed a great love for encyclopedias and would devour the books he borrowed from the library. Kevin would always proudly report this to us. "At this rate, he'll probably become a scholar or something. He can follow any path he loves. As long as he's happy, that's all that matters," Nicole said, smiling at young Matthew. As I watched her profile, I wished from the bottom of my heart that this happiness would last forever. One day, the phone rang. Jason, having retired, spent most of his days at home with no particular hobbies, so he quickly answered the phone when it rang. "Hello?" Jason answered warily, suspecting a scam or telemarketing call. I was watching TV. It was an ordinary day. Holding the receiver to his ear, Jason quietly looked at me, and even though our eyes met, he continued to stare at me without looking away. From his lifeless eyes, I sensed that something terribly bad had happened. The call that came on an ordinary day informed us that Nicole and Matthew had been in an accident and were taken to the hospital. They were apparently on their way home from kindergarten. I imagined Nicole talking to Matthew, holding hands as they walked home. Maybe discussing what to have for dinner or planning to do some drawing at home. They approached the crosswalk, checked the signal, and started to cross. It was all in my imagination, but it felt incredibly real. A car driven by someone who had fallen asleep at the wheel. The 2 of them being thrown into the air. The moment they hit the ground, Nicole instinctively cradled Matthew's head. Jason and I, having received the call from Kevin, went to the hospital where they were taken and sat silently in the waiting room. The image of Nicole and Matthew being hit by a car replayed in my mind over and over again, and I covered my face many times. Why did this have to happen? Eventually, the doctor told us that Nicole had died. Kevin was speechless, standing motionless in the stark hallway with a fixed expression. Only Matthew survived, but there was a possibility of him having a traumatic brain injury, but it seemed Kevin didn't hear the doctor's words at all. When I took Jason's hand, he too was staring into space with his mouth slightly open. Before the feeling of sadness could well up, the funeral arrangements began to proceed. When Nicole's funeral ended, Kevin asked if I could take Matthew in. "I'm sorry, just for a little while. With Nicole gone, I just need some time alone to think." While you're thinking alone, what about Matthew's feelings? I couldn't bring myself to ask that as Kevin seemed so downhearted. Matthew, diagnosed with a brain injury, had lost his previously calm demeanor and had become prone to outbursts and violence. At first, I thought the sadness and loneliness of losing Nicole had changed Matthew's personality, but it might not be that simple. Matthew's brain injury had caused cognitive dysfunction, and none of us Jason, Kevin, or I could understand him. He would yell, break furniture, throw things, and sometimes even hit me. Kevin and Jason would observe from a distance, frowning, and then leave the house to avoid the situation. My worries continued until Matthew exhausted himself and fell asleep after his outbursts. During these difficult days, only Rebecca, who lived far away, called me every day to check on me. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm overseas now, but I'll definitely visit when I get back to the States." Hearing Rebecca's voice softened my heart a bit. I am of an age where society calls me elderly. Living with a young and violent grandson was mentally and physically exhausting. Days like a storm with Matthew continued, and the start of elementary school was approaching. During kindergarten, Matthew caused problems with his violence and harsh words, and I kept apologizing repeatedly. I wondered if I had ever apologized so much in my life. At first, everyone spoke sympathetic words, but gradually, people began to avoid Matthew and me. Even the moms who had been Nicole's friends started to avoid us, deepening our isolation. The kindergarten teachers made various accommodations, but Matthew, unable to move his body as freely as the other children, was always frustrated. When I went to pick him up from kindergarten, he would watch an active boy balancing on the balance beams. The boy, with his handsome face, would balance confidently on the beams, clapping and laughing with his friends. "Grandma, watch me." Matthew tried hard to balance. No matter how many times he tried, he kept falling. Seeing this, the confident boy began to mimic him. The boy pretended to fall from the balance beams as a joke. The boy who had effortlessly balanced earlier now mimicked Matthew's movements and laughed with his friends. Eventually, losing interest in Matthew, the boys laughed and moved on to other playground equipment with their friends. Matthew, with tears welling up in his eyes, "Grandma, watch me," he said, hitting me in the stomach. Sometimes, Matthew's violence extended to other children. I told Kevin that it might be better for him to attend a special education class in elementary school. But Kevin, and even Jason, opposed the idea. "Matthew has some hysterical moments, but he doesn't need a special education class." Special education is for kids with disabilities, right? I don't know. Is he that bad? Cognitive dysfunction is not easily noticeable. Kevin and Jason don't seem to understand the severity of the situation since they spend so little time with him. I've repeatedly explained how his outbursts cause trouble for those around him, and more importantly, how much pain he himself is in. But they refuse to accept it. It seems to me that they close their eyes to the fact that their beloved grandson, their son, sweet Matthew, is disabled. As time went on, Matthew's violent behavior became more severe as he grew. Even though bruises appeared on my arms and thighs, Kevin and Jason turned a blind eye. I even tried to seek help from social services to address this situation. But when I approached them, they insisted that the father must come to the office. Kevin showed no understanding of his disability and probably didn't even know the term high-functioning autism. Every day, I received calls from the school and apologized to countless people. Days when no one would help me. Matthew was always irritated, pulling my hair and continuing his violent actions. I was extremely exhausted. I was so drained that I even lost the desire to seek help from anyone. One day, when Matthew was in 4th grade, he seriously injured an underclassman at school. I heard the details from his homeroom teacher. Apparently, Matthew pushed the younger boy while climbing the stairs. Other students witnessed the incident, confirming that it was indeed Matthew's doing. Even when I asked Matthew for his reasoning, he couldn't explain, and the teacher was at a loss as well. I immediately rushed to apologize to the injured child's home. I rang the doorbell and, seeing the parents' faces, I apologized repeatedly. The boy had suffered a broken bone. At the doorway, "Why didn't the child or his parent come along?" the injured boy's parent yelled at me. The boy, with tears streaming down his face. "It hurt so much. I was so scared," accused me. I kept apologizing over and over. The boy's father said, "Why is a kid like that in a regular class?" Those words pierced my heart, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. Back at home, I cooked dinner in the kitchen. While making his favorite vegetable soup, I cut the carrots into small pieces for easier eating. Matthew, clumsily holding the spoon, tried to eat the finished soup. The spoon fell from his hand multiple times, and eventually, in his frustration, he threw the spoon at me. Feeling an emotion that was neither anger nor sadness, I handed Matthew a new spoon and quietly looked at his face. What kind of adult will he become? Even if he hurts someone, he doesn't seem to reflect on his actions. He acts purely on his emotions and doesn't know how to control his anger. If this continues, Matthew might end up doing something truly irreversible. That night, in the quiet bedroom where only the sound of the air purifier could be heard, I looked down at Matthew. I heard his faint breathing. Staring at Matthew's peaceful and innocent face as he slept, I suddenly felt the coldness of the knife I was holding in my right hand. As I gazed at the sharp blade, thoughts of wanting to free Matthew from his suffering raced through my mind. I clenched my teeth and tightly gripped my wrist with my free hand, holding the knife. Filled with mixed emotions of affection, hatred, and sadness, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. Trying to calm my trembling body and ragged breathing, I closed my eyes. I'm sorry, I can't take it anymore. Holding the knife with both hands, I raised it above Matthew. This is the only way. I have no other choice. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Hey! What are you doing, Mary?
Suddenly, Jason burst into the room, his eyes widening in shock at the sight of the knife in my hand. I froze, turning to face Jason. Jason, terrified by the unexpected scene, stood motionless at the doorway, staring at me with wide eyes. My hand trembled, and doubt began to fill my heart. It must have been only a few seconds. Kevin, appearing behind Jason, rushed past him with a desperate look and threw himself over Matthew. If I lowered the knife now, I would stab Kevin. Kevin's face twisted in fear as he looked at me. Mom, please, stop. Matthew, who had just woken up, looked around in confusion, his eyes wide with shock. He didn't say a word, just stared at me silently through the gap in Kevin's body. I wondered how I looked in Matthew's eyes right now. Seeing Matthew's unusually clear eyes brought me back to my senses. I slowly placed the knife on the floor and left the room without saying a word. My body felt incredibly heavy. Oh, why does my body feel so heavy? In the living room, I picked up my smartphone and called the police. My heart was crushed by despair and regret. I wanted someone to punish me for what I was about to do, for the terrible thing I almost did. If no one stopped me now, I felt I would repeat the same mistake again. The police officer who answered asked what was wrong. I couldn't say anything, just watched the hands of the clock on the wall move.
Mary, hang up the phone.
Jason followed me, looking at me with a pained expression. I lost my strength, letting the smartphone fall from my ear as tears streamed down my face. It's okay, Mary. Nothing happened. Isn't that enough? Tears fell from my eyes, landing at my feet. Staring at the spots where my tears hit the floor, I mustered the strength to put the smartphone back to my ear. I tried to hurt my grandchild. I'm so sorry. I lifted my face. Jason, in front of me, looked like he was about to cry. If you were going to make that face, I wish you had noticed sooner. Jason walked up to me and hugged me tightly, whispering in my ear, "It's not too late. Tell the police it was a mistake." Jason murmured in pain. I pushed away from Jason's chest and forced a smile. I didn't need a mirror to know. I was surely smiling horribly. No. If you and Kevin hadn't come, I would have. A few minutes later, several police officers arrived at the house and I was arrested. As I was taken away in the police car, I kept my eyes closed. Reflecting deeply on my crime, I remembered his eyes looking at me. Remembering his innocent eyes, tears began to flow from the corners of my closed eyes. At the police station, I was taken to a room where a young female officer asked me questions. The questioning continued for days, and I talked in as much detail as possible. Feeling the weight of my guilt, I even wished to be sent to prison. The officer listened intently with a sympathetic expression. When I struggled to find words,
"It's okay, take it slow,"
she gently said. An unexpected lawyer came to visit me, earnestly listening to my life story. "It's all right. I can stay in prison for the rest of my life." The lawyer gave me a slightly troubled smile. He advised me not to forget that there are people who are desperately trying to defend me. I tried to hurt my grandson. My feelings at that time were not just a momentary lapse. If I return to life with Matthew, it will surely happen again someday. After spending 3 days in the detention center, I was to return home. Rebecca was waiting in the police station parking lot. I was surprised that my guardian was Rebecca instead of Jason or Kevin, but I was genuinely glad it was her. I was also surprised that Rebecca, who was supposed to be living abroad, had returned, but she immediately ran to me and hugged me tightly when she saw me. "Mom, it was tough, wasn't it? But it's okay now." "Rebecca, what about your job?" "Don't worry about that. It's not important." Rebecca's warmth was so gentle that I lost my words, overwhelmed with emotion. Without saying anything or asking anything, she put me in the passenger seat and drove off without mentioning the destination. After driving for a while, a huge lake that looked like the sea spread out before us. The blue, clear lake reflected the surrounding mountains, creating a mystical atmosphere. Many trees were planted along the roadside, forming a long, continuous row. That night, I asked Dad and Kevin to check on you.
"What?"
Rebecca adjusted her sunglasses with one hand on the steering wheel. The reflection of the sun on the lake's surface was blinding, so I stopped looking ahead and gazed at Rebecca's profile. I used to talk to Rebecca almost every day. I also talked to Rebecca on the phone that night, but I don't remember what we talked about. But I'm sure I must have expressed my frustration with my current life. Life with him was reaching its limit. Matthew had grown to a point where I couldn't control him on my own. If Matthew continues to grow like this, he might become irredeemable. Then, perhaps I confided in Rebecca, who was living abroad and couldn't do anything about it. That day, you didn't seem like yourself. You seemed cornered and helpless. That night, Matthew had injured a kid at school. I was made to realize again how much trouble we were causing others. The sad eyes of the injured boy and the resentful looks from his parents. No one was blaming him. Instead, it felt like I was continuously blaming myself for not raising him properly. "It's my fault. Nicole is gone. I have to be Matthew's mother."
"Mom, you're not his mother."
Rebecca kept her eyes on the road as she declared this. Eventually, the car slowly came to a stop, and Rebecca gently placed her hand on mine, which was resting on my lap. "You're not Matthew's parent. You don't have to push yourself this hard." "But I don't know what to do." "I'm sorry, Mom, but I wish you had relied on me more." Even with her sunglasses on, I could tell Rebecca was crying. "There's no way I could rely on you, I couldn't." But Rebecca, who was supposed to be working abroad, had dropped everything and come to be with me. I was so happy that I choked up. "Thank you," and whispered. It didn't matter where the car was headed anymore. My heart was so full that I felt sleepy and closed my eyes quietly. I found out later that neither Jason nor Kevin knew I was taking care of Matthew all by myself. During the police investigation, Jason said, "I thought Kevin was helping." And Kevin, "I assumed Dad was with him," explained. Both of them had been avoiding the responsibility of dealing with Matthew, leaving it to each other. Rebecca was apparently furious. After the incident, I started living in the apartment Rebecca had arranged for me. A few months after the incident, when I met Jason and Kevin for the first time in a while, they tearfully expressed their regret. "Mary, I'm so sorry. We left Matthew's care all to you." "Me too. I should have been a father, but I was stuck grieving for Nicole. I'm really sorry." Their sadness wasn't just from regret. The incident had made it into the local newspapers. Neighbors were interviewed on TV, and our family became the center of attention for a while. The school, considering Matthew's situation, strongly suggested transferring him to a special education class. Jason and Kevin had always been against the idea, but the persuasion from numerous school officials led to the change. At first, Matthew himself was unhappy about being singled out, but now he has adjusted and is living more peacefully than before. Jason and Kevin were sternly advised by their company to pay more attention to their family, and are now almost forced to leave work on time. Matthew wasn't present at this meeting. When I asked about it, Kevin smiled slightly.
Nicole's parents moved nearby after the incident. They're taking care of him now.
If Kevin and I took care of him alone, it would have been so tough. He would get angry and hit us. We're really grateful to Nicole's parents. They genuinely seemed thankful, but I couldn't help but think that if they'd realized it sooner and helped me, things might have been different. As I was thinking this, Jason and Kevin both apologized again. We're truly sorry. If you ever feel ready, maybe we could try again. I covered my ears at those words. I still didn't have the courage to face Matthew. When I think back to that night, my hands start to tremble. His peaceful sleeping face and the cold feel of the knife. And those young eyes peeking from between Kevin's arms as he tried to protect Matthew. He might not understand yet what I intended to do that night. There was a prolonged silence as everyone seemed to forget how to speak. Rebecca gently placed her hand on my shoulder and stroked it softly.
Mom, Dad, and Kevin haven't forgotten all you've done for the family. Take your time. Rest now.
Rebecca.
Everyone makes mistakes sometimes. What's important is that we learn and grow from them. Don't you think?
Encouraged by Rebecca, Jason and Kevin nodded emphatically. Maybe if I had been more open about my struggles with the family from the beginning, things wouldn't have turned out this way. From now on, let's make sure we talk things through properly, not just about Matthew, but about me, and everyone else too.
Don't worry, Mom, you can do it.
Rebecca's smile was so bright that I couldn't help but smile back. Considering my situation and Matthew's feelings, my sentence was suspended. Sometimes, I cook. When they were young, Rebecca and Kevin loved my fried chicken and ate lots of it. The fried chicken, passed through Rebecca, reached Matthew, who was overjoyed to eat it.
If I try harder, I can see Grandma, right?
Now, Matthew is undergoing appropriate rehabilitation under expert guidance so that he can live well despite his physical limitations. He couldn't play sports like other kids or climb stairs as quickly as them. It's those little things that no one notices that I think really hurt Matthew and caused him distress. He is moving forward too. Tomorrow will surely be a better day than today. Life is a battle with difficulties. Everyone faces obstacles and hardships they can't avoid. Getting understanding and cooperation from those around us is not something that's impossible. There are always people who will be on your side, definitely. No matter how much you want to run away, if someone is there to worry with you, that alone could be enough to save you. After finishing the fried chicken and thoroughly cleaning the kitchen with a cloth, I suddenly remember his smile. If he smiles while eating the fried chicken I made, I am happy. Imagining the day we can all live together again, I quietly close my eyes for now. If we can make her responsible and push for a divorce, we'll get a hefty settlement, right? Then I can marry you, Emma. Until then, I'll take as much of her assets as I can. I froze as I watched the video captured on the dashcam. My fiancé was laughing as he talked about why he was marrying me. And the person he was talking to was the woman sitting in the passenger seat, his mistress. Shaking with disbelief, I made up my mind. I would never forgive him. I would make him pay. The showdown was set for Sunday, the day of our wedding reception. I'm Karen, in my 30s, working at a clothing company. Although I am energetic and working now, I once became a recluse. I lost my parents in a car accident during high school, and the shock kept me from going to school. I couldn't go out at all and dropped out of school. After that, I moved abroad with my aunt and her husband. In a completely different environment, they showered me with love and I gradually became able to live normally. I took the GED so I wouldn't have trouble finding a job and passed successfully. When I became an adult, I decided to become independent and returned home to get a job. The job I found was at a clothing company, which I loved. I started as a sales staff, sometimes using my language skills to assist tourists. And now I manage several branch stores in the area. My best friend is Sally, a colleague who joined the company at the same time as me. Sally is my confidant and I can talk to her about anything. We often went out for drinks together. One day, as usual, Sally and I went out for dinner after work and unexpectedly ran into someone.
Hey, could it be you?
Huh? I turned around to see a high school classmate, Mike.
Mike? Long time no see. It's been since high school, right?
How have you been? I'm out drinking with my coworkers. How about you, Karen?
I'm with a friend.
I see. It's nice to have good friends. I was a bit worried about you back then. Would you like to join us?
What? But I don't want to intrude on your company, folks. Don't worry, they're all friendly people from the trading company I work at. Here's my business card.
I'm working at a clothing company. We exchanged business cards.
You always liked fashion back then, didn't you?
Huh? How do you know that?
Well, there are things I'd like to talk about. Would you like to join us?
Sure. I'll ask my friend. When I asked Sally, she agreed to join us.
Meeting an old classmate is like a drama. Maybe there's something to this.
She joked, smiling at me. Despite my skepticism, I was a bit excited. Actually, Mike was someone I had a bit of a crush on in high school. He was good at sports, always the center of attention with a bright personality, admired by everyone. Then came my parents' accident. After dropping out, we lost touch. Meeting him again in such a place, and remembering me was quite a surprise. Mike's 3 colleagues were all great conversationalists, and the drinking party was lively. As we parted, Mike said,
"Let's go out for a drink again sometime. Just the 2 of us."
From then on, we started meeting more often. Mike asked about my high school days again. What happened to you? You suddenly stopped coming to school, and it surprised us.
Actually, my parents died in a car accident, and it was mentally tough, so I couldn't go to school.
Really?
That must have been hard. Did you have a tough time living? How did you manage?
Yeah.
Well, there were a lot of things, but my parents left me an inheritance that I could live on for the rest of my life.
And my aunt and uncle took care of me a lot, so things settled down somehow.
Really? That's amazing. But I'm really glad we could meet again like this. You might think it's too late now, but I've had feelings for you since high school, Karen.
What? Really? I know it's late. Honestly, after you stopped coming to school, I couldn't forget you, even now. I still have feelings for you. It's embarrassing, right? Knowing that, I'm still going to say this. Will you go out with me with marriage in mind?
What? Really? Yeah, I couldn't joke about something like this. But I can't believe it. I wasn't someone who stood out, and we didn't talk much, right? Yeah. You were always quietly observing everything. That calmness was what drew me to you. It's kind of embarrassing to say.
Mike blushed. So, what do you think? Will you go out with someone like me?
Yes, please take care of me.
When I answered, Mike said,
Oh, thank goodness. I was so nervous.
And started laughing. And so, the two of us began dating. A few months later, we started preparing for marriage. First, we had a family meeting at Mike's house. Mike's father had passed away from an illness a few years ago, and now he lives with his mother, Jane. Nervously, I said,
"Nice to meet you. I'm Karen, and I'm dating Mike."
Jane, with a stern look, asked some probing questions.
"What made you two start dating?" "We were high school classmates, and we reconnected after a long time."
"Oh, you went to the same high school."
"I'm sorry, I don't remember your name."
"Some kids greeted me at the graduation, but were you one of them?"
"No, I didn't graduate from high school."
"What?" Then Mike stepped in.
"Mom, she had some things going on back then and left high school."
"What?
Dropped out?" "You're a dropout?"
"Yes, that's what it comes down to."
"But..."
I tried to mention that I had passed the GED, but Jane continued to ask questions one after another.
"Then, what kind of job do you have?"
"I work at a clothing company."
"Oh, I guess being in retail isn't a problem even if you dropped out?"
Jane seemed to assume my job was in customer service. I was stunned by her obvious disdain for my dropout status. Unaware of my reaction, Jane continued.
"Mike graduated from a prestigious university, right? So I thought he would bring home a woman with a similar education. But you dropped out, so I'm surprised."
She said this without a hint of apology. The conversation went on.
"Are you going to quit your job? Retail doesn't pay much, does it? Well, it might be good for you to stay at home and take care of things."
She went on saying whatever she pleased. I said,
"No, I'll keep working."
Jane looked displeased.
"If you don't make much money, it would be more helpful if you did housework." "I love my job. Besides, the salary isn't that bad."
I retorted, and she said,
"What are you talking about? Compared to Mike, who works at a top trading company, it's way less, right? Well, you can work until you have kids. But make sure you do the housework properly."
She spoke as if we would be living together after marriage. From this exchange, it was clear that Jane and I were not going to get along. Living together would probably mean being treated like a housekeeper. We somehow managed to get through the family meeting without any major issues, and decided to go home for the day. However, when we started planning the wedding, Jane became even more intrusive. I had intended to prepare everything with Mike, just the two of us.
"Since your parents aren't around, you probably have no idea about wedding planning, right? And you dropped out of high school."
She constantly mocks me for dropping out whenever something comes up. While it's true that I'm clueless about weddings, isn't there a nicer way to put it? Our plan was to have a small, intimate ceremony with just close friends and family, but Jane had a completely different idea.
"What are you talking about? Our family has a long history and lots of relatives. Mike is the eldest son of such a family. He graduated from an Ivy League school and knows so many people. It's only natural to have a grand wedding. This is why dealing with someone without parents and who dropped out is so frustrating."
She was already full of snide remarks. Mike said nothing to Jane. So, the wedding preparations began, not as we had planned. After several meetings, it was just a month before the wedding. I was already exhausted from dealing with Jane. Seeing my distress, "Let's go shopping," my friend Sally suggested. Most of the wedding preparations were done, and I definitely needed a break. We decided to go to a new outlet mall the next weekend. I would drive. Driving is my hobby and a way to relax on weekends. I take pride in my Italian car, equipped with an option that records everything inside the car automatically while driving. Watching these recordings with friends after a drive used to be fun, but lately, I hadn't been able to go for drives because of the wedding preparations. It had been a while since I went shopping with Sally, and I was really looking forward to it. Especially since it was a new mall we were visiting for the first time. I was so excited that I arrived at the meeting place with Sally early. With time to kill, I fiddled with the navigation system and pressed the history button, only to see the name of an unfamiliar hotel.
What? What is this?
I sometimes lent the car to Mike, who said he used it to drive with friends. The hotel history was from the previous weekend. It was the day I was trying on my dress, and Mike said he wanted to keep my dress a surprise for the wedding day. So he went out with friends and borrowed my car. Did he visit this hotel with a friend? Just then, Sally arrived. Sorry to keep you waiting. So, I decided to check it later. The shopping trip was fun, but that hotel name lingered in my mind. After parting with Sally, I went home and checked the history again. Nervously, I searched for the hotel name on my smartphone and found the same address.
It's a motel!
I decided to check the car's recording camera. And there, in the passenger seat next to Mike, was a woman I didn't know. She had long hair, was well made up, and looked a bit younger than me. Where should we go today? Mike asked.
I feel like eating something delicious.
She replied in a sweet voice. Let's go to that Italian place we went to before. How about a nearby hotel after that?
Sounds good.
Clearly, he was cheating on me. In front of my shocked eyes, the video kept playing. Are you really getting married? You said you would marry me. The woman pouted. I was planning to, but then I reconnected with her.
What do you mean?
She seems to have quite a bit of wealth.
What?
Mike's shocking admission hit me hard. That woman has always acted like a princess since high school, and I heard she inherited her late parents' estate. I knew about it back then, but I never knew the exact amount. When I found out, she said it was enough to never worry for a lifetime. It might be several $100 million. Isn't that amazing?
So, you're after her money? Does that mean you'll never marry me?
Don't worry. I'll break up with her eventually. I'll make her take the blame and get a lot of alimony from the divorce, right? Then I'll marry you, Emma. In the meantime, I'll take as much as I can from her.
Mike, you're such a bad guy. But if that's the case, I can wait.
She laughed nastily, and Mike joined in with a big laugh. My body completely froze. It was shocking to learn that Mike had another woman, but even more shocking was that the person I admired was trying to get married just for his own desires. And I felt pathetic for being fooled by such a terrible man. The shock was so great that, even though I usually don't take time off work when I'm not feeling well, I ended up bedridden this time. While I was resting at home, my friend Sally came by, worried about me, so I decided to tell her everything.
What? That's the worst. Break up with him. It's a good thing you found out before getting married.
Sally got angry as if it were happening to her.
That's true. I'm glad I found out Mike's true nature before getting married. But it's frustrating. It's not just the cheating.
I can't forgive him for trying to marry me for my assets. And Mike's mom always looks down on me for not finishing high school whenever something comes up. Yeah. So, you want to get back at them? But there's only a month left until the wedding. That's right. At that moment, a good idea came to me, and I looked into Sally's eyes. Will you help me? And whispered. And so, I began to plan a way to make that condescending family regret looking down on me. The showdown was on Sunday, the day of the wedding reception. According to my friend Sally, who was keeping an eye on things, Mike and Jane were in the dressing room at the venue, all dressed up and pacing around the room. This was because the bride, me, had not yet arrived.
What's going on? Mike, did she run away? No way. That's why I didn't like someone who didn't finish high school. All the relatives are here. This is so embarrassing for me. I invited my coworkers from the company too. If the bride isn't here, it's going to be a huge problem. Mom, what should we do?
They seemed more concerned about their own pride than the bride. But the bride still didn't show up.
We have no choice. Let's explain the situation to the guests and put all the blame on the bride.
Jane went to the banquet hall where the guests were waiting.
The bride didn't even finish high school. It seems she doesn't understand basic manners. We apologize for keeping you waiting without the bride and groom being here together.
And began to explain. Hearing this, the guests began to stir.
What?
Jane was stunned. Seizing the moment, I jumped out from the back of the guest seats. I'm right here.
Karen, why are you there?
Oh, come on. It's because you all were so late. You were 3 hours late. So, I greeted everyone by myself.
What? But the reception starts at 3 p.m., right? That's what the invitation says.
Jane shouted, showing the invitation in her hand.
What is going on?
Mike, who came in later, also seemed confused. No.
The start time is noon. It's written on both the invitation and the hotel's information.
I showed the genuine invitation with a triumphant look on my face. Yes, I had given a false invitation to the groom's family. Except for the guests and the event schedule, I was in charge of all the wedding preparations, so it was easy to deceive them. My firm explanation was met with applause from the guests who arrived according to the invitation. Noticing Mike's arrival, the guests laughed. Finally here. The bride's been waiting. And said, "Ah, boss. Thank you for coming today." Mike scratched his head and greeted them. Hey, did you drink too much at the pre-party and oversleep? Normally the bride would be furious. But she made a joke of it, saying maybe you were with your mistress and that's why you're late. Had everyone laughing. Hearing this, the crowd got noisier again. In contrast, Mike's relatives all looked displeased.
This is unacceptable. Being late on such an important day.
Such reprimands came from all around. But the real laughter at their expense was yet to come. With the bride and groom finally together, the reception began. The reception proceeded smoothly, and a screen was set up midway.
Now, we'd like to introduce a video about how the couple met. A surprise from the bride.
The host announced. Mike looked surprised. The lights in the hall dimmed, and the screen displayed the title, Why We Decided to Marry. Yes, it was the video from the car the other day. Showing Mike boasting to his mistress about why he chose me as his bride.
What is this?
Mike's face turned pale.
I wanted everyone to know the real reason Mike decided to marry.
I explained as Jane, looking distraught, she screamed.
What is this? Who is that woman?
Mike fell silent. Aside from the panicked Mike and Jane, there was another commotion in the guest area. Incredibly, the mistress was there. In the guest area reserved for Mike's coworkers. She seemed to be a colleague and was visibly uncomfortable under the scrutiny. Jane confronted Mike, who turned pale and looked to me for help.
This is not what it looks like.
What? What do you mean?
She was pestering me, so I said those things to get her off my back. I didn't mean it.
If you didn't mean it, why did you go to the hotel so many times? It's in the GPS history.
What? As you can see, I have all the evidence of the affair. I will be seeking damages through my lawyer.
I stared firmly at Mike. Jane glared at me.
What kind of woman are you? How dare you humiliate us like this? I'm sorry for my lack of manners. But your son is far more disgraceful. Is it because of how you raised him?
I then walked over to the staff and borrowed the microphone.
Ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely apologize for this. As you can see, Mike has been unfaithful. So this wedding is off. Unfortunately, I was not Mike's true love. Please guide him towards happiness in the future.
The venue was in chaos, but let's leave the cleanup to Mike and Jane. While resting in the waiting room, my friend Sally came in.
It's over.
Yeah. Thanks for thinking this through with me until today.
Okay, let's go get something delicious to eat.
Agreed. I left the venue with Sally. Later, through my lawyer, I demanded compensation from Mike. Of course, he will also have to cover the cost of the venue. Mike's plan to get compensation from me failed miserably. I heard later that Mike and Jane were abandoned by all their relatives, and Jane, who was so vain, must have been deeply wounded in her pride. It serves them right. There were many of Mike's bosses and colleagues from his company among the guests. So Mike felt out of place and eventually resigned. And that's no surprise. Nobody trusts a person who gets married just for money. Having lost his job, Mike turned to gambling in despair and his debts started piling up. Hearing that he graduated from a top university is laughable. Naturally, he couldn't marry the woman he was cheating with either, and she also quit her job as well. It's her own fault. Of course, I demanded compensation from her too. She's now working desperately at a nightclub to pay back her debts after borrowing from shady lenders. I went on a refreshing trip with Sally. We tried activities we'd never done before and ate lots of delicious food to relieve the stress we'd accumulated. Two guys who seemed to be having fun approached us. When we talked to them, we found out that their company was surprisingly close to our workplace. And we even made plans to go out for drinks together. I have a feeling that something new is waiting for me. Leaving the memories of those pitiful people behind, I offered flowers to my parents' memorial portraits. As soon as the conversation about caregiving began, my Asiel Sabrina was the first to speak up.
I won't do such volunteer work. But my family was a single-father household, so I owe Dad a lot.
My brother-in-law Liam said.
Does gratitude earn money? What, are you into blessedarianism or something?
Sabrina forcibly countered. My husband Graham and I exchanged looks, speechless. I am Riley, 52 years old. My husband Graham is 53, and we have two daughters, Nina, a high school senior starting university in the spring, and Tina, a high school freshman. My parents are still alive, but I heard that his mom passed away due to complications after his birth. After losing his wife, my father-in-law Thomas raised Liam and Graham on his own. And after they got married and left home, he lived alone in the family house. Thomas used to be a high school world history teacher, and now he makes a living as a tutor. Last year, Thomas called us.
They found a tumor during a health checkup, and a detailed examination revealed it's terminal cancer.
Such heavy news for a phone call. He said it so lightly that I almost dropped the receiver. Why could Thomas say such a serious thing so calmly? He continued as if answering my unspoken question.
I'm already 78. My grandchildren have grown up, and I've done most of what I needed to do in life. Being called to heaven, that's just the order of things. I have no regrets, whether I have 3 months or 1 day left.
It's a perspective only someone who has lived life to the fullest could have.
When the time comes, I'll seek palliative care. I have enough savings for that, and I don't intend to be a burden on you all.
With that, Thomas hung up the phone. When I told Graham about the call after he got home from work.
But even so, he'll need someone to take him to the hospital. He might not be able to stand when he gets weaker,
he said. Well, that's true. We had to discuss Thomas's future caregiving with Liam and his wife, but Graham and I were dreading it. That's because his brother's wife, my sale Sabrina, has a strong aversion to volunteering. She sees any unpaid labor, even if it's family-related, as a significant loss and refuses to cooperate. Sabrina has one daughter, Anne, who is the same age as our Nina. Their house is close, and they attended the same elementary, middle, and high schools. From my perspective, her behavior at school events was the worst. In elementary school, selected moms had to serve as PTA officers. Of course, it's volunteer work.
Why do we have to do such work for free?
She argued, refusing to take on the role even once in 6 years. It's common for everyone to avoid being officers with various excuses like both parents work or caregiving for my parents. Since I disliked such disputes, I reluctantly took on the role. But the other moms who avoided it expressed their gratitude, and I think I was able to have a fulfilling experience in my own way. However, she said to me, who had taken on the role, "You must really like this stuff, working for free."
It's nice to have so much free time.
Sabrina, who detests the word volunteer, grew even more vehement as Anne grew older. One day, Nina came home from high school.
Sabrina came to school today.
She started talking.
How come my Anne can't get a recommendation for her desired university?
She stormed into the classroom, yelling such things.
I became a PTA officer at this high school and made Anne volunteer for the Olympics, all to help her get a recommendation. Why can't she get it?
She was furious. Even when the homeroom teacher, flustered by her sudden intrusion, explained that recommendations are based on a detailed analysis of internal assessments.
What about the evaluation of our volunteer work? How come there's no return on that?
She pounded on the desk, yelling. And then,
compensate for her volunteer work and my time as an officer by calculating the hourly rate,
she reportedly said. Now, back to the story. When it came to Thomas's caregiving, it naturally became a question of whether Liam or Graham would do it. The discussion was held at our house. As expected, Sabrina was the first to speak up.
I won't do such volunteer work.
She was so excited that I could see her saliva splattering onto the table.
Are you kidding me? Caregiving jobs pay $10 an hour these days. And you expect me to do it for free? No way.
Sabrina protested vehemently. Liam, trying to soothe her, said,
If we take care of him, I'll do as much of the caregiving as I can. The idea that caregiving should be done by the wife is outdated. So,
But,
huh? If you have that much time, spend it on family. Your time is my time, and I won't allow your volunteering.
Sabrina interrupted.
No, we owe Dad for raising us as a single father.
Liam, still intending to take Thomas in, persisted.
Does gratitude earn money? What, are you into blessedarianism or something?
Sabrina remained unyielding. Hearing this exchange, Graham and I exchanged looks, speechless. Seeing Liam and Sabrina struggling, I made up my mind and spoke up.
In that case, we'll take care of him. It must have been hard raising 2 brothers as a single father, and we want to repay that kindness. Besides, if it weren't for Thomas, these brothers wouldn't be here, and they wouldn't have grown up to be such wonderful people.
Wow, you're the type who can be satisfied with the smell of steak. Sabrina gave me a contemptuous look. Fine. I'll eat even without the smell of steak. Gratitude, when chewed, becomes more flavorful and lasts for millennia.
I believe in repaying kindness rather than money.
I had fully declared a fight. And so, Thomas came to our home. It's incredible that, despite having terminal cancer, he continued to see his tutoring students through their exams. While I wanted him to spend the last days of his life at home, we had to consider the inconvenience it would cause for our daughter's commuting, so he had to understand. Thomas seemed to want to say no need for cohabitation, but as time went on, the number of hospital visits increased, and I was truly glad we were there for him. With more surgeries and hospital visits, he visibly lost weight, but Thomas remained spirited. One day, Thomas called Graham and me.
I have something to talk about.
After making sure the kids had gone up to their study room, we gathered in the living room.
Listen carefully before I die. Actually, I inherited an oil field.
Thomas suddenly revealed something we hadn't anticipated. We couldn't comprehend what he was saying and instinctively asked,
"What?" I said, "I was given an oil field."
"Huh?" We couldn't help but respond like that. Thomas repeated, enunciating clearly,
"An oil field."
"An oil field." The words were clear, but I was too stunned to speak.
"An oil field, like the one where oil comes out?" "Yes, the one where oil gushes out." "But why an oil field?"
"It's not something you can easily handle." As we were completely taken aback, Thomas began to recount the events of the past. While raising his 2 children alone, Thomas greatly relied on the help of a local social worker who lived next door. Whenever he needed help with activities for the children, she would introduce him to groups or even take them to mother-child classes, despite them being meant for mothers.
Raising kids alone was incredibly tough, and I managed thanks to the help of many people.
Thomas said. He came to believe that people ultimately live through mutual support. During his time as a teacher, he had the opportunity to visit international food aid programs. When he got there, he saw the dark side of these organizations. These aid organizations would offer financial support to specific children in exchange for interaction with those children. A common system in developing countries. Indeed, supporting a child financially could save their life. Receiving a thank you letter from the child could give the sponsor a sense of accomplishment. However, upon visiting a developing country, Thomas witnessed the reality where the children targeted by this system enjoyed school meals to the fullest while others went home hungry.
This kind of injustice is unacceptable. We must provide food and education equally.
Driven by a sense of righteousness, he sought support from colleagues and friends to build as many schools as possible for these children. An overseas schools principal, deeply agreeing with his vision of equal education and nutrition for the world, offered him the rights to an oil field to support his cause. Though the oil field was small, it generated about $15,000 per month. Thomas, at last, voiced his wish.
After I go to heaven, I want to pass this oil field to you guys.
He wanted the money to be used to run schools and continue building more as long as possible. I understand, Dad. I remember the social worker who helped me too. You're right, people live by helping each other. Tears welled up in his eyes.
I'll tell Liam about the oil field tomorrow,
Thomas said. Given Liam's personality, Thomas expected him to agree with the plan, but that night, Sabrina called.
What do you mean by this?
She shouted so loudly it felt like my eardrums might burst.
What do you mean we don't get a drop of that oil?
Her furious outburst was anticipated. Thomas said.
Come over, and I'll teach you about the ways of the world.
I conveyed this to Sabrina over the phone. That weekend, Liam and his family came over.
Oh?
And is with you too? I was surprised to see and after a long time.
Hello. Dad told us to bring in two.
Liam explained.
Maybe he thinks the grandchildren have a right to the inheritance too.
Sabrina said, leaning back arrogantly.
Now that everyone is here, let's hear what I have to say.
Thomas began. Everyone in the living room fell silent at Thomas's voice.
My final lesson. I want to talk about compassion and the mission of volunteer work.
What? Sabrina reacted with surprise and confusion at Thomas's choice of topic, which included the word volunteer.
You're the only one who reacted.
Thomas gently addressed the visibly shaken Sabrina.
This final lesson is something I want you to hear.
Thomas began his lecture quietly. He first addressed his granddaughter, Anne.
And I heard you volunteered at the Paralympics. Do you think it was a good experience?
Cheyenne looked down. Not one to speak suddenly in front of others. Thomas waited patiently, smiling at Anne. Finally, in a small, trembling voice, she responded.
It was a learning experience.
Sabrina stiffened at Anne's unexpected response.
That's a good realization. I want to hear more about how you learned from it. What kind of volunteer work did you do? At the Paralympics. What did you learn?
The conversation continued up to this point, before Sabrina, unable to hold back, interrupted.
Didn't you learn that volunteering is just a waste of time? Can we stop the leading questions? A waste, you say?
Thomas repeated her words in question form, which only irritated Sabrina further.
I made her volunteer at the Paralympics to boost her transcript score, but she didn't even get the recommendation. It was a complete waste. That's the life lesson.
Then,
in the end, Nina here got the recommendation and is retaking the exam this year.
She pointed at Nina and shouted bitterly. And Nina had aimed for the same recommendation, and Nina was the one selected. I knew this, and cried the day the recommendation was decided. And the next day, Sabrina stormed into the school. I had heard about it from Nina. At that moment, a voice shouted, cutting off her words. Stop it. I asked Grandpa for this. I asked him to give this lesson. It was Anne.
What?
Sabrina froze in place. Thomas cleared his throat and then spoke.
That's the point. My final lesson is to rescue my granddaughter and from your misconceptions.
Thomas cast a loving, reassuring gaze at the frightened Anne.
Let's go back to the topic. What did you learn at the Paralympics, Anne?
Thomas's gentle words encouraged and to convey her thoughts earnestly. Hang in there, Anne. I cheered for her silently. I was in charge of guiding the athletes. There was a completely blind athlete, and I was worried about how well he could walk, but he needed less help than I expected. When I wiped his white cane, which was dirty, he somehow sensed it and thanked me. Their sense of hearing and ability to read the air were impressive, and I realized that it's not right for us to use the word disability for them. On the other hand, the athletes said, we have to provide our own bikes for the competition. Each country puts its latest technology into them, but since the level of technology differs, the performance of the bikes affects the results. I learned that absolute equality doesn't exist. That's a great learning experience. Yes. By participating in volunteer work, I was able to learn a lot and broaden my perspective.
Volunteering when you're young is a time when the brain is actively inputting and outputting information, and it grows significantly. I want you to do as much as you can.
Feeling extremely uncomfortable with this conversation, Sabrina interrupted.
Enough already. What did that volunteering leave you with? You went out in the scorching heat and didn't even get the recommendation. You keep talking about your heart, but without any reward, it's meaningless.
And stood up resolutely against Sabrina's extremely inconsiderate remark.
I told you to stop talking like that, Mom. Eek!
Sabrina's voice cracked in shock at Anne's sudden outburst, something she had never shown before. But Sabrina continued.
But you were taken for a ride. In the end, you're just repeating a year, aren't you?
At that moment,
silence. Are you even a mom of her?
Thomas roared.
Listen to what Anne is saying. You're her mom, aren't you?
I was astonished that Thomas, who had become as thin as a withered tree due to his advanced cancer, could still muster such a loud voice. The volume of his voice silenced everyone.
Go on. We'll all wait until you finish speaking.
Thomas gently patted Anne's back. After a brief silence, Anne began to speak slowly through her tears.
Nina got the recommendation because of her good grades. I already knew that. When we realized we both wanted to go to the same university, we said,
we're great rivals. No hard feelings, no matter who wins.
So, we were truly great rivals. I thought this kind of relationship was a treasure. But then, Mom barged into the school. After that, Nina said, I'm sorry to me. I never wanted her to apologize. I thought, congratulations to Nina, but because of Mom.
What a revelation. Anne's last words turned into a shout. I was speechless. The friendship between Anne and Nina and Sabrina destroyed it.
I learned a lot from volunteering. Helping others is important. Even if not everyone is satisfied, it's important to save as many people as possible. I want to go into social welfare.
Upon hearing Anne's confession, Nina hugged her shoulders.
I'm sorry. I didn't know I hurt you so much. When I heard about Dad's childhood, I also wanted to go into social welfare. Single-father families still need a lot of support. We were thinking the same thing. Let's stay friends forever.
Nina and Anne hugged and cried together. Moved to tears, Tina joined in, embracing both of them and saying,
Keep it up, both of you.
Watching this scene, Thomas sighed in relief.
This lecture was tough on my weakened body, but it was Anne's phone call after her gap year was decided that triggered this. When Anne shared her true feelings with me, I knew I had to do something. I made it my last mission in life. Never forget today and always appreciate and sharpen each other. Thank you for listening.
The room filled with applause and sobs of emotion. Sabrina watched the precious bond between Thomas and his daughters with a detached expression. Seeing Sabrina show no emotion,
your values are detrimental to Anne's growth. As her dad, I am determined to remove anything that hinders her growth,
Liam told her. In the end, Liam and Sabrina divorced. Having always rejected the PTA and barged into the school without remorse, Sabrina had nowhere to turn once Liam expelled her. She quietly left town without anyone noticing. Naturally, Liam took custody of Anne.
Seeing how Dad did it, I'm convinced I can raise her alone,
he said, and I promised to help. Although I couldn't match the social worker who helped Thomas, I vowed to do my best. A year later, Anne, who took a gap year, got into an even better university than the one she had initially aimed for in her third year of high school. To report her success, we visited Thomas's grave as a family. "We'll never forget your last lesson." We all made that vow. Back home, we placed a letter next to his portrait. Even after his death, letters and airmails from his former students and tuttees kept arriving. Thomas's will to build schools in underprivileged countries became primarily my responsibility. All the oil field revenue went into that project. Though we continued living frugally, our horizons expanded immensely, and our hearts became far richer. I consider that to be truly precious. And I talked about joining the Overseas Cooperation Volunteers someday. Nina mentioned over dinner that she had with and after returning from university. Seeing her smile, I engraved the purity of love deep in my heart.
Nick and Laura are coming back for the birth of their child at home, so you need to leave,
Antonio said loudly.
Leave? Me?
When I asked back, Antonio nodded with a smile.
I've always thought things would be better without you. I hate people who always throw around the right arguments like you do. There are other women besides you.
Just because we've been together for so long doesn't mean we have to stay together in the future. Antonio was the one who made a bold statement. Whatever difficulties he faces from now on are none of my concern. He probably thinks he'll forget about it after a good night's sleep, but not this time. He should take responsibility for his own words. I'm Scarlett, 55 years old. Right now, I live with my husband, Antonio. Antonio is 60, 5 years my senior. So, he recently retired. Antonio said,
Maybe I'll spend my time enjoying my fishing hobby now.
He seemed happy about it. Meanwhile, I run a small apparel company, thankfully making a decent profit. Currently, we can afford to live in a high-rent condominium, thanks to my job. Antonio was supportive, but after his retirement, he changed. First, his daily routine shifted. Now always at home, Antonio had many days without plans. This led to a more lax lifestyle, staying up late watching TV or sleeping past noon. Occasionally, that's okay. But when it goes on for days, it's concerning. I suggested, shouldn't you keep a regular schedule, especially at your age? But Antonio seemed unconcerned. Instead,
I've worked hard all my life, let me be. Don't tell me what to do,
he retorted. Another issue was Antonio's boredom. He had few friends and his only hobby was fishing alone. He seemed increasingly idle after retiring. And he began nitpicking at my housekeeping. Frankly, I'm not great at domestic chores. Busy with work, I rely heavily on the latest home appliances. A cleaning robot for housekeeping, electric cookers for meals. Antonio didn't like that.
Robots can't clean every nook and cranny. Doing it by hand is more thorough.
He insisted on me doing things manually. One evening, he complained about dinner.
Stews need time and attention, not an electric cooker.
Even though he never minded before, now he was imposing his preferences. At worst,
stop being lazy. You're so sloppy,
he would say. I'd consider his requests if I had the time. But I'm too busy with work. If he's retired and has time, he should do it. When I pointed this out,
just because you work doesn't mean you can act superior,
he snapped. I couldn't help but understand why some people divorce later in life. Yet, I endured, considering how hard we had worked together. But things escalated due to a particular event. Our son's wife's pregnancy. Our only son, Nick. His wife, Laura, announced her pregnancy. Actually, Nick isn't my biological son. He's Antonio's from a previous marriage. We remarried when Nick was 10. Antonio was ecstatic about the pregnancy announcement.
Our first grandchild. Our first grandchild. Yes, it's exciting,
I replied, happy too, but Antonio's joy was beyond normal. I think he was experiencing grandparent fever. That's why things turned out this way. Laura, raised by a single mother. I'd like to go back there to give birth. Probably because he said so. Laura grew up in a single-parent household. So this time, my mom is too busy with work, she explained. So Antonio, eager as ever, said, "We need to welcome the baby in the best possible way." And he began preparations. That's fine, but he strangely imposed it all on me.
This crib, every kind of milk, just in case. Oh, and a lot of diapers.
He just barked orders. I was already swamped with work and chores. Even when I made time to prepare, it was never right.
No, not like that.
He'd complain.
No, no. You're saying it's not this. Please, enough. I understand you're excited, but do it yourself. Stop relying on me for everything.
He seemed shocked to be challenged. Standing frozen.
Our first grandchild, and you act so detached. Right, you're not biologically related to Nick. You don't care about him.
That's not true.
Don't say such awful things. You're overdoing it. If Laura knew how much you're doing, she might not want to come here. This place doesn't feel relaxing.
Antonio tried to respond, but couldn't find the right words. Frustrated, he clenched his teeth and retreated to his room.
Damn it! I didn't mean to go that far.
His fanaticism had driven me to stubbornness. And being spoken to like that about Nick hurt me too. I want Nick and Laura to relax here. That's why I had to stop Antonio's excesses. Later, I thought about making amends, but Antonio didn't come out of his room. Reluctantly, I looked through the door. I'm sorry about yesterday. I'm going, I said and went to work. That day, I faced numerous work troubles and got home quite late. Dinner was going to be delayed. What should I make? As I thought this on my way home, I found Antonio already sitting at the dining table, waiting. I'm home. Sorry I'm late. I'll make dinner as quickly as I can. There was no reply from Antonio. I moved around busily. Antonio just sat there, staring, as if pressuring me. If he's home anyway, he could have made dinner. Or at least, he didn't need to rush me like this. Finally, I managed to make crispy fish sandwiches and serve them.
Sorry for the wait. Let's eat.
Antonio immediately started eating his sandwich in silence. Were you that hungry? I sat down and began eating my sandwich. Before I was even halfway through, Antonio had finished eating. He sat up straight and looked at me. What? I asked. Antonio spoke in a low voice.
You're all about work, neglecting the housework. What?
His unexpected words nearly made me drop my sandwich.
What are you talking about? I'm not neglecting anything. Don't act like it's nothing. Like today, just sandwiches? No salad or soup. That's unacceptable.
True, I usually serve salad and soup. But today wasn't about being lazy. I hurried because Antonio seemed so eager to eat. I explained, but Antonio wasn't convinced.
It's not just that. You always negate everything I say or do. You must think you're better because you're working and I'm retired. That's not how I think at all.
Despite my repeated denials, Antonio remained unconvinced. I was getting tired of this pointless argument.
Let's stop this. We'll be welcoming Nick and his wife soon. I don't want to greet them with this unpleasant atmosphere.
At this, Antonio sneered sarcastically. Ah, right. I've been thinking the same. So, I've found a good solution.
A good solution?
Puzzled, I tilted my head. Antonio declared loudly.
Nick and Laura are coming back for the birth, so you should leave. What?
I couldn't believe he was serious.
Leave? Me?
When I asked again, Antonio nodded with a smile.
If you weren't here, things would go smoothly. I've always thought so. I hate people like you who always argue with logic. There are plenty of other women.
I was shocked. After decades of marriage, to hear such words. Antonio, carried away, continued to vent his grievances.
You lack respect for me, your husband. Always complaining, never just listening. Complaining? I respect your requests as much as I can. It's you who makes unreasonable demands. Shut up. I hate your bossy tone. Just leave. I don't even want to see your face.
Antonio slammed the table. It was futile to say more. I said,
Understood,
and returned to my room. The next morning, I called a moving company immediately. After being treated like that, I wasn't going to stay. Fortunately, it wasn't moving season, and I easily scheduled an estimate. I hoped to finish everything while Antonio was out. But he was almost always home. I was worried, but then it seemed like fate intervened.
I'm going out tomorrow for a bit.
Antonio is the type to forget things overnight. So he spoke to me quite normally. Apparently, Antonio was invited by his fishing buddies and was going for an overnight fishing trip. This was my chance. There was a slightly awkward atmosphere. Maybe even Antonio felt that what he said yesterday was too much. Still, there was no apology from him. He might be hoping to act as if yesterday's words never happened. He's always been like that. Until now, I've been the bigger person, letting things go. But I couldn't just ignore what he said this time. The moving estimate came quickly. I planned to take all the furniture and appliances, but there was less than I thought. The problem was finding a place to move to. But that was easily solved. Someone I knew through work offered to lend me a place. A brand new one, no less.
Are you sure?
I asked again, and they said, Scarlett, you've been so helpful. So I accepted the offer. I immediately went to see the property. It was more than sufficient, with no issues. I moved everything out while Antonio was away. His harsh words left me without regrets. Perhaps deep down, I had grown tired of life with Antonio. The night after I moved, Antonio called. Here it comes, I thought, and answered the phone.
Hello? Hey, Scarlett. What's going on?
Antonio sounded panicked, even over the phone. I almost laughed, but responded calmly.
What do you mean? My house, it's empty. What's happening? Well, you told me to leave, so I did just that.
I had taken everything, from the latest appliances to my favorite dining table.
But I only told you to leave. It's crazy to take everything from someone's house. What? Leaving them would be crazy. I bought all that with my own money. You never contributed, saying you didn't need them.
Antonio fell silent, then said grudgingly,
Fine. Nick and his family are coming tomorrow. Furniture doesn't matter.
He'd be surprised to see the place now.
Good. Then it's perfect timing. Say hi to Nick for me.
There was no point in further conversation. I quickly ended the call. There was another significant matter, but I didn't mention it since Antonio seemed unaware. The next day, Nick called.
We'll be there soon.
A phone call. Didn't Antonio tell you? I moved out.
Really?
Nick sounded surprised, but didn't press further. In fact, I sensed more relief than shock in his voice.
Cool. Mom's not there. We can do whatever we want then. You're not coming back, right?
That's right. I always sensed Nick found me bothersome. He seemed displeased I didn't pamper him like a biological mother might.
You're not as kind as other women,
he once said as a child. I thought I was raising him with love, so he wouldn't struggle later in life.
Well, it's easier for both of us. Laura was uncomfortable too. So, see you.
That was like his father, always adding one extra, unnecessary comment. I pondered this after hanging up. That day, I was a bit on edge, unable to focus on work. I half expected a call about the furniture and appliances. Laura once said,
It must be nice to have all these appliances for an easy life.
I secretly thought their visit was to take advantage of that. But contrary to my expectations, no call came that day. Finally, at the end of the month, Antonio called. Scarlett? His voice lacked confidence, making his intention clear. But I played ignorant.
Yes? It's about the rent. Yes. What about it?
He struggled to say it, but he wanted to talk about rent. Antonio and I used to pay $1,700 for the condo rent. I was the one who paid it all. There's no way Antonio, with his retirement, could afford it. He might manage for a while with his retirement fund, but it would eventually run out. He called me, but hesitated to speak his mind. I had to prompt him.
What? You're not expecting me to pay the rent for a condo I don't even live in, are you? No, that's not. You were the one who insisted I leave, right? And now you're coming back to me?
That's not something Antonio's pride would allow. As expected, he changed the subject. Scarlett, are you doing okay? You know, with a place to live?
Yes, I managed to find a place, thanks to some connections. I'm living comfortably.
Saying this left no room for him to ask me to return. I had no intention of going back, but just in case. Oh, okay. Nick and Laura were saying they miss you. I thought maybe you'd consider coming back. Such words were unusual for Antonio. He must be really desperate. But I had no intention of returning.
Oh, really? I thought they disliked me. No, that's not. Well, it doesn't matter. I have something important to discuss, so I'll come over.
Yes, there was a vital matter to discuss for my future. Antonio replied.
All right. I'll be waiting.
Cheerfully. Later, I visited the condo for the first time in a while.
Long time no see.
Antonio was dressed up unnecessarily. No matter how much he dressed up, it was pointless. I walked down the hall and into the living room, where Nick and Laura were sitting. Clearly, they couldn't live with nothing. New sofas, tables, and a fridge were installed. Nick waved casually, and Laura, though glaring, greeted me. The atmosphere was tense. I wanted to finish what I came for and leave. I sat down as Antonio urged.
So, what did you want to talk about?
Grateful he brought it up, I started the conversation. I thought it's better to handle this sort of thing sooner rather than later. Antonio turned pale the moment he saw what I held out.
You're planning to divorce me?
He was visibly shaking, looking at the filled-out divorce papers.
Yes. Ever since you told me to leave, I've been intending to. Did you really say that without thinking?
Antonio fell silent. He probably did. He tends to blurt out things in the heat of the moment without thinking ahead. This habit had caused him troubles at work several times.
The last time you said all those terrible things, I don't want to see your face. There are other women. And what else? Anyway, at that moment, I couldn't see a future with you anymore.
He must remember saying those things. Antonio kept his head down, sweating.
Yeah, I said it. But that was not really what I meant. You can say such things even if they're not in your heart? I'm appalled. Well, it doesn't matter to me anymore. I was shocked. I can't do this anymore. That's all.
Facing Antonio, our eyes met. He immediately flinched and looked away.
Can't you reconsider? We've come so far together. I've come this far only to be told such things. I can't do this anymore. I can't be with you.
As I firmly stated, Antonio let out a long sigh. The room was enveloped in a painfully awkward silence. The silence was broken, surprisingly, by Laura.
Excuse me. I'm the one who's been most inconvenienced here.
I turned to Laura, tilting my head, and she glared at me with eyes full of resentment.
What do you mean? I thought this place would be perfect with Scarlett around, clean, and full of the latest appliances. I came here expecting to be pampered, but instead, I'm caught up in this marital mess. It's a huge nuisance.
Laura sighed even louder than Antonio had earlier. She was angry with me for not meeting her expectations of a princess-like pampering. That is a huge misunderstanding. If she's unhappy, she could go back to her own home or anywhere else. But she chose to stay here. When I said this, Laura's face turned red.
What's with that attitude? I came all the way here for you. I never asked you to come.
Laura looked like she was about to scream. Her breathing was heavy with anger.
But it's absurd. I had such high hopes after talking to Antonio, and now this. It's too much.
Laura finally burst into tears. Nick tried to comfort her. But this made a little sense. This explained Antonio's excessive grandparent fever. It was driven by Laura's expectations. Antonio, flattered and relied upon, must have gotten carried away. But it doesn't change anything. Laura was inconsolable, and Antonio remained frozen, sweating. There was no point in staying.
There's no use staying here. I'll leave. We can settle the divorce through lawyers.
As I stood up, this time Nick shouted,
You're running away, shaking off your responsibilities and causing trouble.
I was stunned by the absurdity. It's also good to have a grudge. Approaching Nick, who was sitting close to Laura, I found myself naturally looking down at him.
What's wrong?
How old do you think you are now?
Huh? I'm 35 years old.
I took a deep breath and glared at him.
So what responsibility do you think I have? Taking care of a 35-year-old son and his wife, or a 60-year-old husband?
Nick was speechless, eyes wide. I couldn't hold back any longer.
You're all adults. Enough is enough. Who's causing trouble? Using my efforts as a stepping stone while expecting me to always smile and comply. Calm down, Mom. Don't act like a child now.
I shouted so much I was out of breath. I took a moment to breathe deeply.
At least. Nick, I always cared about you, raised you as my own. But maybe I failed to convey that.
Nick started to say something but fell silent. I grabbed my things and quickly left the room. No one followed me. Later, Antonio agreed to the divorce easily. No alimony. He mentioned moving out since he couldn't afford the condo. Antonio had never done housework before. Living alone would be hard for him. The letter passed through the lawyer, written in Antonio's familiar handwriting. Thank you for everything. Simply said. He tried to reconcile, but I firmly refused, and he seemed depressed. Nick and Laura decided to go back to Laura's family home. Laura complained, but Nick persuaded her. After the divorce, Nick called once. I'm sorry for everything. I'll try to be a parent like you, he said shyly. Maybe Nick hadn't hated me as much as I thought. I ended up buying the new house I was renting and still live there. Work is going well. I was tired right after the divorce, but now I feel refreshed. It's nice not having to take care of anyone. I'm not sure how many years I have left to work, but I'll do my best. Enjoying my private life too. And secretly, I still wish for Nick's happiness.